The first jolt hit around 19, for some it coincided with a whistling kettle, for others with evening prayers. 6.9 on the scale, one of those numbers that sounds equally cold wherever you are. In Cebu, balcony glass chattered, elevators froze, and the narrow stairwells turned instantly into tests of endurance. On the 19th floor sat an elderly man with a cane, long accustomed to rationing every movement. Thomas Markle, 80. Once a man of light in the literal sense, a multiple regional Emmy winner for lighting design, now a man cut off from the way down. And from the past, too, though that is trickier than a stalled lift. While engineers fanned out through buildings checking cracks and load-bearing beams, another kind of seismic activity rolled across social media, emotional, impatient. The Duchess's half-sister, Samantha, posted first, "Dad's on the 19th, can't walk, he's trapped." A more measured update followed, "He's okay, we're working out how not to be in this situation again." But a single memorable word, "stuck," was enough to pull an entire family chronicle, carefully boxed and shelved for years, back onto the table. Earthquakes are always about what we cannot control. Family dramas are about what we try to control too late. In fairness, geography has never been this family's ally. Between Montecito and Cebu lie 11 to 12 hours of flight time zones, small children, legal fights, security arguments, obligations to foundations. A life in which any trip requires logistics worthy of a military operation. But nature has its own rules, it exposes priorities, not schedules. When an 8-year-old man is left alone at the top of a tower with a cane and dead elevators, all the previous plotlines, "we want privacy, they don't understand us, the press lies," recede. What stands in front is painfully banal: water, medication, people nearby to help him down or at least carry up a hearing aid and a charger. We've trained ourselves to demand the right actions from public figures on a stopwatch. Why didn't they call immediately? Where's the unfiltered photo at the hospital door? Why did they say nothing in the first 15 minutes? Real care doesn't sprint to meet a news deadline. It is rarely photogenic. It is often quiet, awkward, imperfect. That is precisely why it matters. The most important gesture in this story may be the one we never see: a short international phone call without a press release, a wire for a private carer with no last name in the memo line, an arrangement for a lower-floor apartment if only temporarily, while the aftershocks settle. Yes, too much has been said out loud before. There was the wedding day he was meant to walk his daughter down the aisle and didn't, because of an operating theatre and stents. There were the staged paparazzi photos that ricocheted into shame and defensive fury. There were TV hits, a memoir, lines that still make people wince. And yet age has its own immunity to grievance. At 80, life claims the right to cut subplots. It crosses out chapters and leaves only what ties to basic needs: someone to open the door, someone to pass the pills, someone to say, "The lift is out, but we're here." Everyone is tired of the unending Sussexes vs the World Chronicle. Fans, critics, the indifferent. That is why this moment is a test of maturity for us, the watchers. Can we endure silence? Not demand immediate right pictures, and leave room for the private? We ourselves have told them for years, keep it in the family. This is the rare moment when that phrase might finally mean something. Harry is a knot of his own in this. His recent months have played like jagged montage: court hearings and claims of a clear conscience, the unexpected tea with his father, lines about keeping the focus on Dad, and then another tabloid squall about men in grey suits sabotaging reconciliation. He has long fought for the borders of the private, and the paradox is that every attempt to defend them generates more headlines. But there is a front where cameras cannot go by definition: home conversations with children about a grandfather they don't know, explanations of why the world can be cold, and why even in that cold, old age is not grounds for indifference. Meghan carries her own inventory of fears. Returning to Britain isn't a map but a memory: headlines, whispers in boxes, stray shots, the social no, thanks. Add the internet's iron demand that she be both bold and modest, and you have a trap with no right exit. Yet an earthquake is a genre that doesn't tolerate golden means. There is no style page here where hats and quotes are compared. There is a stairwell and an old man who struggles to walk. The task is to be a daughter again, not a symbol, and to do exactly what you do for any frail stranger on the 19th floor. There are quiet heroes in this story, people already on the ground. Half-brother Tom, reportedly keeping an eye on their father. Neighbors willing to haul water and groceries upstairs if the power drops again. Local services that know what to do when the elevator fails but knees do not cooperate. In a world where we're quick to appoint culprits, perhaps, for once, we could appoint the grateful, to those carrying daily weight without hashtags. Of course someone will ask, why discuss this at all? Aren't the basics obvious? Sadly, no. We live in an ecosystem where every movement by a public figure is instantly frosted with interpretations. If they call, PR; if they don't, cold. If they send a carer, buying reputation. If they send a card, stingy with action. It's a puzzle with no winners. There is one adult way through: do what you judge right and tolerate misunderstanding. Hold your course even when the feed drags you sideways. Still, the simplest, almost bookkeeping steps do more than a right photo on a threshold. Move, temporarily, to a lower floor. Put powers of attorney in place, so no one runs between notaries if there's another hospital run. Update the medicine cabinet for climate, blood pressure, glucose. Agree with neighbors on a casual eyes on the door in the days after aftershocks, when everyone is on edge. Nothing heroic. Effective. Why does it hit so hard now? Because an earthquake is the rare narrative that refuses metaphor. It literally shifts foundations. We suddenly see which walls in our stories are load-bearing and which are decorative. In the Markle Sussex saga, the load-bearing wall is old age. You cannot rewrite it the way you rewrite biographical chapters. You can only shore it up, plainly, sparsely, with no guarantee of thanks. There's also a temptation for the press, to turn a private episode back into a series, cast the roles, trap the reaction. But perhaps today is the day to allow ourselves the luxury of professional restraint. Note what matters, and ease off where the hunt for emotion begins. We can afford to lose a single exclusive. What we might gain is rarer, the sense that islands of quiet still exist in public life. And then there is us, the readers. We've grown expert at sorting strangers' lives into pros and cons. Yet every so often it helps to return to the first questions of any ethical code. If this weren't a headline but your neighbor, what would you do? If this weren't a figure from the Chronicles but your grandfather, how would you act? Those answers need neither surnames nor crests. The ground will settle. Elevator shafts will hum again, bulbs will flicker and hold, officials will brief on concrete and beams. The feed will sprint on, to new pageantry and new skirmishes. But the real resolution of this chapter won't be where the right image appears for the annals. It will be where a simple hello sounds, without witnesses, without the word exclusive, with no right of riposte. Sometimes the loudest act is a plain thing done in quiet. Call, help, arrange, without demanding applause. And if the story needs a final point, let it be precise rather than sharp. The quake reminded us of something simple: when things shake, you grip what will actually hold. A rail. A hand. A word. Everything else can wait.